going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. We are doing a pre-tape. My schedule, I planned a trip for Wednesday, and I wanted to do a pre-tape so I can, get this uploaded, and then also have the excerpts ready to go because I won't be back until late Friday. So that's why we're doing a pre-tape. But remember, this being Nocturnal Transmissions and all, it's still Robert's fault. And speaking of which, we have, the always faithful co-pilot, the homeboy Rob.
It's always my fault.
It is always your fault. You'll be promised a very lively show tonight. If the backstage is any indication, but we'll be going over a few news items today, and also and the movie review, which is continuing in the theme of dystopia, and the movie is Blade Runner from 1982, starring Harrison Ford, directed by Ridley Scott.
I have a lot of thoughts on the film.
Yeah, no, it was for the time it was truly a groundbreaking film. A lot of philosophical questions about what's it mean to be alive, and the nature of the soul, and all that kind of stuff.
And Los Angeles became Coruscant, and it rains all the time.
I know, it's weird, right? Because LA's kind of in the desert, but it's constantly raining. And what's also even weirder is if you've watched Blade Runner 2049, it snows apparently there too, in the future.
Global warming,
or climate change, as it's now branded as. But anyways, all that said, let's get this conversation started. So I think we're gonna skip the formalities of like, oh, how you doing or whatever, and just jumping into the news items.
I can just tell you to fuck yourself now, Andy.
What was that?
I can just tell you to go fuck yourself right off the bat.
Yes. Well, okay, fine. We'll start off with your story, and of course, we'll be talking about Michael Jackson and the recent documentary series that has come out, alleging alleging wrongdoing on behalf of the departed pop star.
All right, so
why don't you start us off, because I know you're ready to rip my head off for some of the things that I said in the backstage. So.
All right. So, admittedly, I have not seen the documentary, so I don't. I will be watching that at some point within the next couple weeks. So, we'll probably revisit this topic. But here's the thing with I heard a question, or kind of like a point or a few points brought up this week. One being, it's like because there was a number of weeks ago where we're digging up the corpse of John Wayne and saying like, oh, how terrible it was that he had some not even really that bad of thoughts from like a Playboy interview that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you could potentially say the same thing about Michael Jackson. Why the hell is this being dug up? He's already dead. And well, the problem is in the case of Michael Jackson, who is a pedophile, is the people that he has attacked or molested, sexually abused, raped, what name you, are still affected by what happened. So I think this is, and it was also kind of this open joke in Hollywood that Michael Jackson fucks kids, and as we've talked about on many times in this program, about kind of the normals, there is kind of a push to normalize pedophilia, and I think this is a good thing to shed light, continue to shed light on on an evil that needs to be um, brought out into the open and ridiculed. And so I think I'm, and when it comes to Michael Jackson, um, you know, let's take his, because there's a lot of people that are coming out and defending Michael Jackson, and I am not one of those people. I think when you start doing this kind of stuff to kids, I have honestly, I think they should all be castrated and killed. And thankfully, Michael Jackson's dead, so he can't hurt anybody anymore. Now, this is not to take away, like, I'm a fan of his music. I think he's a very talented dancer, singer, artist, all those things, no doubt about it. But let's take his celebrity status out of the whole situation. Let's say he's Joe Johnson down the street, and he's some in his 30s, 40s, 50s, or up to the point that Michael, the age that Michael Jackson died at. And let's take a look at the stuff that, yeah. So let's take a look at some stuff that Jackson has admitted to, and not only didn't like it wasn't a like, oh well, I guess it wasn't like, oh well, I guess I have to admit to it. No, he was actually proud of. He thought everything he was doing was just fine, or the stuff that's found in his estate after he died. So for one, a man in his 30s, 40s, 50s is having little boys sleep in his bed that aren't his kids. Let's mind you. So let's say Joe Johnson down the street is wanting to have your kids over for your 5, 6, 7-year-old kid and come for a sleepover in his bed. I think that's a little odd. And it wasn't just like one; it was many. Then you have like the all the weird bondage porn that he had with kids' heads superimposed on the images. There was child pornography. There was these kind of these secret sex dungeon rooms where they had special locks and alarms to notify when people were coming close by. And this is even without listening to the what the victims or alleged victims were talking about, because you could say oh well they didn't accuse him of it beforehand, so but now they're changing the story, and it seems a little suspicious to me. And I say, okay, let's take all that out. I think having all the stuff that we do know about Michael is pretty damning enough. Because like I said, take out his celebrity status, take out his talent and his money, and this is just somebody that you knew down the street and you knew about this stuff, we'd be calling for his head out on a pike. We'd want him dead.
Yeah. I don't disagree that, yes, pedophiles, should be, castrated or killed. Those, if you're found out to be a pedophile, those are the options that you should be presented: castrated or killed. That being said, I can't, like you, I'm a fan of Michael Jackson. It's part of my childhood, listening to his music. Trying to do try and teach myself how to do the moonwalk and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just it's kind of hard, and I know because I've heard the same things you have, and and it's one of those weird things where you kind of want to almost not believe like the heinous nature of what has been reported or what has been found or admitted to. Especially, you kind of tend to extend a little bit more grace, especially after they died. But yeah, So I mean, I'm
But
not saying,
but
So
that's
again,
the
like,
thing though. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, he's dead, but this is stuff that like we people were defending him about this stuff, and like I said, uh, he has the right to defend himself against these allegations. But to be honest, I think they did a fairly lousy job, just because Michael Jackson opened his mouth and was talking about this stuff, and everyone. And the thing is, the people that like kind of were around him and knew him in public, you always saw him with like this like group of lost boys that he would cling to himself, and the fact that it was everyone that knew him. It was like, oh, yeah, Michael Jackson, he diddles kids. Hey, it's an open joke. It was an open joke for decades. Just with like the whole, we make fun of the whole, like, because the Me Too stuff got out of hand, but like the whole casting couch thing, like that was that's been an open joke in Hollywood too. Like we laugh at the crocodile tears of Meryl Streep and all these people with like Harvey Weinstein, but they knew they were bringing people to this monster that was that was um, abusing credibly abusing these women.
yeah, you're right. It's totally right. And yeah, during our backstage, I took a contrary position. Uh, just I mean, just because I knew you'll get Robert riled up. Of course,
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
I didn't think that he was gonna go, double barrels on me, right away. And so, like, I think, I should have saved it for the stream, because I did want him to go, because again, yeah, if you're proven to be a pedophile, then yes, the two options that you should be presented is castration or death. And so, but because listening to two guys agree with each other, would be kind of boring. So I did want to take
Yeah,
that contrary position, but again, but I'm not lying when I say that it's still really hard for me, because again, I grew up with Michael Jackson. It's really hard, and even though I know like of the monstrous things that he's done, and and just like the kind of like open secret that is been around in Hollywood and the entertainment industry in general for decades. And again, similarly to the Harvey Weinstein, the Me Too thing. Uh, so
and here's the thing, and before like here's one thing I'll say. I do believe that everyone, because these aren't allegations that you just throw around willy nilly, because it's very dangerous to do that.
right,
We've
but
seen
yeah,
how like
yeah, just like the Weinstein stuff, like this stuff against Michael Jackson has been persistent throughout the years, and I mean, and some people, and some of the accusations come from kind of like shitty people, and but that and it kind of sucks, because then it kind of casts a cloud of doubt over people who might actually be genuine in their accusations. And so again, it's like that,
the
so
hoaxes weren't real
the
victims.
waters are muddied like crazy. So, but again, like Robert has stated in his initial argument about the things that they found on Neverland, and the things that he's just freely admitted. It's all pretty damning.
Yeah, well, and yeah, it's funny. You did kind of you came at me with all the shit I've been hearing this week from Michael Jackson defenders, which kind
Yeah.
of pissed me off. It was like, well, so and so, like there was, how is he was found not guilty in court and all this stuff. So that means he was innocent of all this stuff. Or what about Corey Feldman and Macaulay Culkin? It's like, okay, you're right. There's a few, like, yeah, he was found not guilty in court, but
quick,
you have
just to
from the
defend myself
church.
real fast. I never said that he was innocent.
Right, but well, that's what I'm saying.
But
Like, just
anyways,
because
continue.
you're found not guilty in court doesn't mean you didn't do it.
Right.
Let's look
Yeah.
at
I never
O.J.
asserted
Simpson.
that he was innocent, but continue.
And but this is what I've been hearing all week. It's like, oh well, he's found not guilty. That means he's innocent. It's like, no, it doesn't. Like, even admittedly, the jury in those court cases says, like, yeah, the thing is, we believe that this happened, but the prosecution did not give us enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's what they're. And you take away, like, and what was it? I got a couple of hate tweets on this earlier in the week, and it's like it kind of like throwing the arguments that you were throwing at me, and it's just like, okay, well, let's. You people bitch about how, like, oh, these people with money and blah blah blah, they're evil and all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, you throw someone like that, he has all this fame and money and a high price legal team to bail him out of this shit, and they did. That's exactly. I mean, they did their horrible job, but I mean, like, the work of Satan. But yeah, they did it. But if this was someone that didn't have the celebrity that everyone loves his music, I was like, oh, he's so childlike. And if this was any normal person that acted in the same way, who didn't have the money and the fame, we'd be calling for him to be burned at the stake, and rightfully so.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, again, during our backstage, yeah, I was just testing, I tested the links of.
Pissed me off.
In my attempts to just kind of get his dander up a little, I got him to go, full bore, double barrels at me. I was like, oh crap. And because, I'm no punk bitch, I couldn't back up, so I went back at him with double barrels. But, yes, it's. Again, this is hard for me because I am a Michael Jackson fan, and yes, it's more than apparent that he was a sexual deviant and a predator, and and that's it just it's just all these it's all these different feelings, especially recent since it's come out that radio stations are now like banning are no longer playing his music, and even even the Simpsons are having the episode where his voice is where he did like a guest starring role. They're no longer going to be playing that anymore. So
that's the that's, I mean, like I said, it's kind of like I'm a little torn with that too, just because it's okay. Like, in most cases, I can separate out the body of work as opposed to, like, their personal life. Because it's one thing, like,
separating their art from the artist.
Right, because I think Kevin Spacey is a garbage human being, but I like his acting. I think he's a good actor. I mean, hell, his show on Netflix, House of Cards, fell apart when he was thrown off the show. And I like his movies, but that doesn't mean that I think he's a good person. Same thing with Michael Jackson. I like his music. I think he was very talented, but garbage human being. Like, it's kind of, and I'm one of those people that's like, well, let's not throw away what is, what's good, but like what. Yeah, you could argue that, like, it's a contribution to society. Maybe, I mean,
with
the music. I mean, right? I mean, you could.
Right, because his music videos, they're back in the day, his music videos, they're basically short. They're basically shorts. They're basically short movies. And it was the first time that and it was he was like one of the pioneers of doing like that kind of long, like that movie style of music video. And so, it's kind of like, let's not throw out the bathwater with the baby.
I mean, it's kind of, you look at the let's say we found out that Gutenberg was diddling kids or was a huge rapist. That doesn't take away his achievement of
right,
the
yeah,
printing press,
right,
which changed history to a huge degree.
Yeah, it was like he was like the first web hoster.
Right.
Because once the printing press happened, more information was able to be spread and disseminated amongst the masses. Literacy went up because of the press, and so
right. So that would be one thing. It's like, oh well, it finds out that hypothetically that he's a terrible, terrible person, but the contributions are still really are significant, and
exactly.
They shouldn't just be thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be burning books just because Gutenberg was a a serial rapist or pedophile.
Excellent point.
So I mean, in that case, I maybe people see this as a as a cop out, or I'm a hypocrite. It's like I mean, I might not listen to his stuff as much, but I'm not going to just not listen to his music every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like maybe I won't be listening to my Michael Jackson playlist, as much as, I used to. Like maybe once every 5 years, I'll just listen to it, for nostalgia purposes.
Right.
But it just won't be, there just won't be any Michael music in my usual rotation.
Right. But it's just it's just we get just kind of it just pissed me off with all the it's like, I'm a Michael Jackson fan too, but I also see that we shouldn't be people are conflating his musical contributions to that may just because he's done that makes him a good person.
That's tacking it onto his depth of his depth of character.
Right. And this is the same thing that the left and all these crazy people do. It's like, oh well, it's black and white, or there's no gray area. It's like, well, life is messy. People aren't just one thing. His musical contributions have transcended him. They're not. It's not just Michael Jackson. And the same thing, but his personal life is horrific. He's an evil person that destroyed these kids' lives.
Yeah, just to highlight the absolutist nature of people on the left. Really quickly, Chris Evans, who famously said if he had the Infinity Gauntlet, he'd snap and get rid of he'd get rid of everyone on the right. That Chris Evans.
Yeah.
He recently. Again, and that part of me makes me really sad because I love him as Captain America. And, but he says this batshit crazy thing. He basically wants to get rid of half of his fan base. But more recently, he met with Dan Crenshaw, the congressman from Texas who was a Navy SEAL, and he lost part of his eye, and he went to go meet with him. Kind of cryptically on Twitter, saying, I'm working on something here, and then Dan Crenshaw showed him what was underneath the patch, and it was a glass eye, but instead of the usual kind of pupil iris glass eye, he had Captain America's shield.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly, and Chris Evans, just put out innocuously, oh, that's a really great use for vibranium.
Right. That's funny.
Right. It's a nice, lighthearted, friendly little thing to say, especially for someone who he wanted to snap out of existence. But that's neither here nor there. But of course, the left goes off, on Chris, Chris Evans saying like, one Twitter user said like that guy's literally Hydra. Talking about Dan Crenshaw.
Dan Crenshaw is I mean, I don't know him personally, but he seems like he's one of the nicest guys. Like, he's taken a lot of bullshit from the left, but like he didn't come out and guns blazing. He decided to hey, you know what? I'm gonna forgive these guys, and he had that whole really nice segment on. He came on SNL and kind of joked around with these guys.
Exactly.
And he's taken everything in. He's
taken everything in stride. He's taken everything in stride.
He's a unifier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's showing great magnanimity and ability to laugh at himself. But these crazy leftists. They you can't talk to anybody. Which I think is exemplified because they'll never openly debate anybody. And I'm not just talking about, on the right. Like, anyone who kind of, mildly questions them, they won't debate them at all. It's a quick, shut down, no questions here, move along kind of situation.
You asked me a question, that's racist. It's like, well, no, it's just I don't know. I'm trying to understand, right. So that we can come to some sort of I might not agree, but at least understand what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah. It's
nope, can't do that.
Yeah, it's I don't know you. I'm not a mind reader, so asking questions is the way I find out about you and what you believe. And I'm
there was
and I just might have a differing viewpoint. But that doesn't mean that I hate you or I want you dead or any of the things that you are accusing me of doing or wanting.
Yeah, there was a comedian that I like who's definitely not on. He's definitely not a right wing at all. A guy by the name of Mark Normand, and he had this bit where he was kind of because he was talking about kind of the whole PC culture. And he was talking about he was at a party and there was someone that he knew who was black, and he's like, hey, what's the whole deal with the black people can't swim stereotype? And the black guy is like, oh well, a lot of us grow up in the inner city and there's not really any water, there's not a lot of water around, so we don't really learn to swim. It's like, oh, okay, well, now I know. And it's like you have some probably some white leftist who is it's like,
let's just call them busybodies because they get up all in your business.
Hey, that's ignorant. It's like, yeah, it's like, well, no, it's like that's why I asked the question, so I'm not so that I learned something. It's like,
right, yeah.
Say ignorant, you idiot. And it's like, well, that's kind of it's like
yeah, you're absolutely right. I was ignorant. I asked a question, I got an answer. Now I'm not ignorant.
But you can't do that anymore. Or according to left, at least.
Simply asking a question is not allowed anymore. I mean, I don't know. Did they expect us to be mind readers or something?
Well, that's the tactic of the left, the socialist, communist, left, that they want to control and censor everything, and they want to dominate everything, and that asking questions is a dangerous thing because that means that oh, you're going against our power and authority. That's what they want to do.
I mean, that's usually what I yell at people when I'm driving. When they do and they don't signal or they're just they cut in front of me without warning, and I just scream at them. Must be nice, coming from a place where everyone can read each other's minds.
Yeah, it's like, did you mind meld with everyone on the road?
Yeah, it's just like. But anyways, to bring it all back, yes, Michael Jackson is a pedophile. He is a monster.
But yeah, I maybe I don't know if you were still recording like the from the backstage, but maybe we can put that up because I was when you like started coming at me with from that position, like, are you fucking kidding me, Andy?
Yeah, I
Oh my
know.
god!
I know. I
I was
should
like,
have. I don't know why I don't. I'm such a bonehead.
I was I was gonna say it's like wow, Michael Jackson got to you. You're one of the fucking Michael Jackson apologists that have been pissing me off all week. And it's like I was. I mean, that's worse than the beans and chili
How little you
issue.
know me, Robert. How little you know me.
I was gonna say this is worse than the beans and the chili and In-N-Out fries. So you fucking jackass.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Robert has a hatred of beans and chili and of In-N-Out fries. So,
It's not chili at that point when you throw beans in there. Come at me. I don't care. I will argue against you all day long.
yes, I know. I completely, yeah, I totally triggered Robert. I really did. It was funny because I didn't think he was gonna get that worked up. That's the funny thing. You know, I was just taking the contrary position just to be kind of because that's who you know. Because those of you who know me, I'm an asshole. So I will take the contrary position, and I didn't think he was gonna come at me that hard, but he ended up coming at me really hard.
No,
But I mean, of course, I didn't
because
know
you.
about the whole like being under attack on Twitter or whatever. So.
Yeah, I got some hate on Twitter this week from that, which is fine. Like hey, if people want to come at me, that's fine. I don't care. I'm
Yeah, it's
gonna
funny because
defend
I
them.
was actually gonna weigh into some shit on Instagram, but I don't know why, but I chickened out because I really didn't want to deal with all the bullshit.
I decided to dive into that pool, Andy, and
Yeah,
let me tell you.
I know, because especially because it's like it was on National Women's Day or International Women's Day.
Oh, you mean the celebration of socialism taking over?
Yeah, pretty much. But because I was gonna put up a picture like a picture of like some female soldiers, and then the message was gonna read like, oh, happy, International Women's Day. The Supreme Court has just, ruled that it is unconstitutional for men alone to have to sign up for the draft. So they're probably going to take it to, they're probably going to take it to to Congress to pass a bill requiring women to register for the draft. And I'll, so like congratulations. I was going to do like a story, and then on the next picture, it would be, a quote from, uh, Arlie Emery from Full Metal Jacket. It's like congratulations. It's like there is no racial or sexist bigotry here. It's like here you are all worthless.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, I know I chickened out. I don't know why I did because usually but
I'm shocked,
I
Andy.
really didn't want to deal with this shit.
I'll be honest. I don't blame you. There's been a few times where it's like, I have a very strong I should. There's been a few times where it's like I really should take the opposite end of this argument and defend this idea, but I was like, you know what? I'm too tired. It's like fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. It's like it's also when knowing when to keep your sword sheathed,
You're right. That's the case. See, there's a
and
lot of times where like, is this a topic that I'm gonna am I gonna die on this hill? And when it
right,
comes to things like pedophilia and going out against that, I will die on that hill every day. If it,
right, yeah, exactly. So
I mean, and we've talked about that on you on several times. Same thing with the whole abortion issue. I mean, yeah, I'm not going out and marching in the streets and stuff like that. because personally I don't think that does anything.
Mm-hmm.
But keeping the stories out in the open, talking about it, promoting movies like Gosnell, and exposing the hypocrisy
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff that's going on, and it's like that's stuff that we need to keep doing. And
Right.
you know what, if I catch him hate for it, then fuck it, whatever.
Right. And I think, I mean, as much as we'd like to be, not influencers in like that kind of, secular way, but we would like to be people of influence. And I think, there's no greater uh, position of influence than your immediate circles. Uh, and I think just being just being a speaker of truth is the best thing. I mean, yes, sometimes a show of solidarity, marching in the street is, I can, I can see the benefits of that. But what's more potent and more powerful is just, your bonds between people and influencing them that way.
And I've always said, it's like, listen, if you want to hate on me, that's fine. But if I get you, even if you hate me, but I get you thinking differently and seeing a different angle on something, and maybe it eventually changes your mind, I feel like I've done my job.
Right. Yeah. I totally feel the same way. Well, speaking of abortions, that's always that's a
Good segue.
yeah, good segue. Yes, for the other news story we're going to talk about is a man in Alabama is suing uh, an abortion clinic and the manufacturers of Plan B type of drug for on behalf of his aborted child. It's the story goes. A man in Alabama. He gets his girlfriend pregnant, and once finding out that she is pregnant, he wants to have the kid. He implores the girlfriend to have to keep the baby, but she goes behind his back and goes to uh, a Planned Parenthood type of place, a type of clinic, and gets the aforementioned drug to abort the pregnancy. And he is so again he is suing the clinic and the manufacturer of the drug. And this is the first first case of its kind, really. Um, and it can only have happened in Alabama because they do have a personhood law on the books, which does give rights to uh, fetuses, embryos, what have you. And so if he wins, this will be a precedent-setting case, which will then I think which then can be brought brought to other states or even to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's that's an interesting. There's been I'll have to say there have been some interesting thought experiments, and in this case, like this is an interesting case too. Yeah, well, I'll be honest, like I have not seen this story. I mean, the first I'm hearing it is like you kind of talked about it today, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean totally, because here's the thing, because it's like when people talk about abortions, they only talk about it from the perspective of the woman, the mother. It's like, oh, it's her body, her choice. But it's like, well, this woman did not get, pregnant by herself, and I'm pretty sure, God is not gonna, God is not gonna use the same trick twice. Referring to, of course, Immaculate Conception. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so, why is it that the man doesn't have a say in the life, in the life of his child?
Well, they think that see, the thing is, I think a lot of it has to do with like the mindset of the people who are pro-choice, where they think like, oh well, if I have the choice to either remove this, whatever they want to call it, because they don't see it as an independent life form within their body, who has, to be honest, has its own rights. It's, yeah, it's inside you, but it's not your life. You're ending someone else's life. They
Right.
don't
I
see it
mean,
that way.
yeah, it's not like
But
it's
so,
yeah, it's
but
not like it's
because
a
it's like
part of
they
the
see it,
woman's body. It has its own separate DNA, its own separate circulatory system, its nervous system, organs, brain, all completely separate, not belonging to the woman. And if you were to take a DNA test of that baby, then it'd be completely different. It wouldn't be the same as the mother's.
here's something I thought would, because human life has seemingly become less important in our time.
Yeah.
Uh, let's say in the case of animals that we enjoy, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
all love dogs, we all love cats, or whatever animal, horses. Let's say we started aborting uh, dog fetuses. Would would there wouldn't there? It's like that's technically, yeah, it's not the same thing as a human, but it's also it's independent. The life inside of like the dog fetus, that's an independent life, own its own um, life cycle, DNA, all that stuff. But let's say we start. It's like, well, it's not really a life. Why don't we just abort it? Um, do you think that there would be like an outrage of like we need to end dog abortion?
It's funny because I actually did come to that same line of thinking also because yeah, if they seemingly no longer regard human life as special, then why should we then can we then apply that to other life, like say, yeah, like as in your example, like in a dog. What does it matter? It's not like by your definition, it's not a life. It's not. It's just a cluster of cells. So why not abort it? Say like you're a dog owner, like you're the owner of a female dog, and some she gets off the leash and she kind of disappears for a few hours, and let's say that she has an encounter with a male dog, and and you don't, and as the owner, you don't want puppies. You don't want to be responsible for puppies. So why not just go and get those puppies aborted? No big deal, right?
I don't. Well, first, I don't even know if that's a thing, if people do that or not. But
I know, right? But it's interesting though, because I mean, by their standards, you can then do the same thing for a dog, for a horse, for a cow, for a lizard, for all I know, for all I care. But that's the
it's
standard
like,
that they are then setting for everybody else.
I'm just saying, it's like the level of outrage that would happen if that, I think if that started happening.
Right? Yeah. No. There's like people love their dogs. Like there was the question that was asked, like if you have to save a person from being hit by a car or a dog being hit by a car, what would you save? What would you save? And people, surprisingly, a surprising majority of them said the dog. They'd pick a dog over a human life.
I'll say it depends on the person.
uh,
Because
So if
there's
it was
been times
between
where
a
it's like,
dog and
I
Nancy
think I love my
Pelosi.
dog more than I like that person.
Yeah. So if it was a dog or Nancy Pelosi.
No comment. I plead the fifth.
Yeah, but I mean that's that. I mean people. Yeah, that people give more shits about animals than they do about human beings. And I mean,
Well, I mean
okay, and,
that's the whole like the environmental issue, which is like I think is but it's um well, and that's the thing. It's like we have devalued human life.
mm-hmm.
Constantly you have like, well, I don't I'm not gonna have children. I don't want to have that responsibility. And it's like, and for the past couple of years, for the first time in quite a while, actually, it's like we've the voting or the age of like the average age of like living is decreased.
Hmm. It has.
And that's yeah, it's through suicide and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
overdoses,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not even to count the fact that like we're killing uh you know hundreds of thousands of kids every year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. In New York City alone, a black baby has a 50-50 chance of being born.
That's insane.
That I don't know how people are not horrified by that statistic. That a black baby has a 50-50 chance of being born. Or I should say, it has a 50% chance likelihood that it'll be aborted. And I don't know how
And
people are not freaking out about that.
and that I mean that's it, that is a horrific number.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just quickly to bring it back to the article and to put a personal stamp, put a personal embellish on it. Not my personal, but a buddy of mine. He was seeing a girl, and he got the girl pregnant, and he admitted to me that he did tell her to get an abortion, but you know she she had somehow she like disappeared for a little bit, and when she came back, she wasn't pregnant, and it was during that time that he was starting to have doubts, and he actually was starting to uh, kind of warm up to the idea of being a father. And and because he couldn't he couldn't reach her, he couldn't like call her up and say, hey, I having some second thoughts, I think we should talk about it, maybe we should have this kid. The girl went and got the abortion on her own. And
Shit.
and I remember this one time we were hanging out, and yes, we were drinking, but the guilt of that was it's still weighed on him, and
Yeah,
he started like sobbing, saying, oh, my child, and it was gonna be a son, and he was like saying, my child's dead, I could have been a father, my son is dead, and
that's
that I was I was there, I heard his words, and I saw the pain in his eyes, and it was more than I could bear, to be honest. It was so I was
yeah.
so devastated for him, you know, and it's and yeah, and because and like in the story, he's saying that he's doing this for all of the men that wanted their babies and didn't have a say in the matter. So I mean, I hear stories like this, and I automatically think of my friend, and I'm like, this, this case isn't just for this singular man, but it's also for my friend, who after thinking about it, he changed his mind, and he wanted the baby, he wanted to be a
Yeah.
father, he wanted to raise that life, and I think And I hope this guy, wins this case. I really do. I hope, I pray, if he, if he's starting up a legal fund, I would happily donate to it.
Yeah, definitely. That's it's rough, man, because we keep hearing the stories like, oh, it's just it's you have like women say, oh, it's my choice, my choice. It's like, well, there's more. And I think a lot of it has to do with your mindset. Like, for people like us, we know that child is an independent life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just it's really not. It's not our decision, the woman or the man, to choose to end that life. That's I mean, there are a few thought experiments that I think do um, that that warrant definitely some discussion. I'll agree. I would admit that, but they're so far and few between. It's like that life is you're responsible for caring for that life, to defend something that can't defend itself. Yet we're willingly, ending those lives, or it's. I think it's call him crazy or whatever you'd say, but he's not the only one that's been saying this, and we have, but like Alex Jones is saying, is like, yeah, a lot of these people, they're selling like these body parts and organs, and Project Veritas is found footage of this,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean they went undercover and got footage of this stuff. It's like they're doing. It's not just like, oh well, it's women's health. We're just we want to do what the women want to do, and it's so nice. And it's like, no, there's something very sinister going on in that in that group. And this isn't something like this isn't a new thing. You look back in history, it's you look on with King Herod, who is uh, didn't want his throne taken away by the Messiah. So he knew, okay, the Messiah is going to was born around this time. I'm going to kill every boy, age 2 and under, to make sure that like I get rid of him. It happened in Egypt, where they were, back in the time of Moses, they were killing off babies and stuff. And so it's not a new thing. There's always kind of like a sinister, um, it's a power grab or something. There's something sinister behind it. It's evil. In this case, like, we are, shown like, kind of like the pretty flowery, like, oh, it's okay, it's for women's health, and we want to care about women, which, if you're not really thinking about it on the surface, like, yeah, that makes sense, like I could see that, but in reality, that's not what's happening. Like, we're ending lives at we're murdering lives at a horrific rate, but then we're like doing weird shit with selling off like organs and all. It's a black market industry, and admittedly, in those videos, that they're finding like, oh well, I can make 50 grand off of this baby, by selling its organs, like, or if it's healthy, I can make 100 grand. I can make double that. That's fucking horrifying.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
And but
yeah,
I'll say this too is, but and the people that are, and I'm not necessarily putting full blame on the people who are getting abortions, because I think they're being I think in a lot of cases, I'll say 90% of those cases, they're being lied to, and they're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
because they're thinking like, oh well, I'm not gonna comment on necessarily like on like what their mental kind of what their belief system is,
Mm-hmm.
but they're being lied to.
Right. No, they're not getting the full picture. They're not, they're not even given like all the options. Because
Yeah, and that's the thing where it's like they're being lied to. They're not given all the options, so they think that they're making the right choice.
yeah. Or like not even a right choice, but they think that they're making an informed decision when they're not. They're not given, any of the other. Well, like they're not
Yeah,
giving any
that's
other option
that's a better way
except
of
for
saying it.
abortion. They're not they're not, counseled into like, maybe keeping the baby, or if you really don't want to have this, if you really don't want to be responsible for this baby, just put it up for adoption. Adoption. That's never been brought into the discussion. It's always like, all right, these are the packages. This is what we offer. Like your baby, the baby will be aborted. Here's a fee. Here's a suction fee. Here's a, here's a here's a forceps fee. I don't know, but that's it. They don't talk about the other options.
You're right, and I think you said it better. Like they're not being given all the information at hand that's available to them,
Mm-hmm.
and on the other, and in a lot of cases, they don't care about the women. They're talking about all this women's health. They don't care about the women's health. There's been cases. I'm sorry, like, a few too many for my liking, where that they don't care about.
Yeah, and like what is
If the
like
woman
yeah,
dies,
they
like yeah,
always say
whatever.
yeah, they always then and Planned Parenthood especially they always say like, oh, abortion is just a small part of the services that we provide, but it's like but it's also like 75%. That's but you guys but I don't
That's
know
coming
something
from the
like
head of
high.
Planned Parenthood too. She
What was
said
that?
that like that's changed because the head of Planned Parenthood, the current head of Planned Parenthood, said that yeah, abortion is our main moneymaker. That's admitted from her
Right. Yeah,
on the
and
record.
yeah, because they, before they used to tout like, oh, yeah, abortion is only 3% of our overall services, but the number of abortions is like staggering. Um,
Yeah, but no,
and
on the record, she said something different now. Like that it's no longer that, oh, it's only like 3% of the services that we provide.
right, yeah, and yeah, yeah, and like, as you said, like the current president of Planned Parenthood, it's like no, like yeah, like this, it's like it's no longer safe, legal, and rare. It's like we want this. We want to be known for abortions.
And the other thing too is like when it becomes a money making venture, like it
Mm-hmm.
is, like as we've seen from the hidden footage from Project Veritas and others, uh, it's they're they're making money off of these people. Not obviously like yeah, okay, let's just say like, oh well, it's a medical procedure. Yeah, they're getting paid. Like I don't think there's like a doctor getting if it was just a procedure like oh, I'm getting like my tooth extracted. Yeah, of course I'm going to pay the dentist for that, right? But no, they're selling off body parts. It's organ harvesting. Like you see, like the cartels are like like kidnapping people, and they'll end up people wake up in bathtubs full of ice with their liver out, or their like gallbladder like taken out, and it's like those organs are being sold on the black market.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like it's not just like, oh well, we care about women and all this stuff. It's like no, they care about they're trying to see how much money can I make off of this person if I take this baby, if I take these organs, I can make 50 grand off of this person. Or if it's like, oh, why don't we wait a little bit, like, and you come back in about 10 weeks, and they think like, oh, I can make 100 grand in about 10 weeks.
Right, because the baby is
And
more formed, and by that time their organs have developed.
that is fucking evil. Evil. And they know, and those people know what they're doing.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
fucking evil.
very fucking evil. And I mean, and again, to kind of bring it back to like the late term abortion thing, and and to put a to make it a little bit more personal, like the provision in like the legislation and like the legislation that they were trying to pass in Virginia was that you could cite medical abnormalities or deformations as reason to abort your baby. And there's like there's this guy who's like, I don't know, there's like video of him like on Capitol Hill, and he has Down syndrome, and he's like and he's like fighting for people like him to be spared, to have the right to life. But also, to make it personal for me, if this law was passed back when I was when the time that I was being conceived, then then that choice would have been possibly made to my mother.
Yeah.
The choice to abort me.
People like you would be eliminated, Andy.
Yeah, people like me and you. Yeah, you know what we call that? We call that eugenics. And you know who used who were big fans of eugenics? The Nazis.
Yeah. Those they keep calling us Nazis and shit, but that's real Nazism.
Yeah, I know. They're trying to control like population. They only want like supposedly perfect beings or whatever. Yeah, that's what they believed in. They thought that they were the superior race.
Yeah, it's I mean, God, that's that's a whole conspiracy theory I could probably go down to, where it's like I really think that the left are the real Nazis, because not only are they doing stuff like this, but the Nazis were known for doing horrific human experiments. And what's become popular nowadays, like the whole transgender thing, where people are hacking off like their body parts and shit, and taking different hormones.
Right.
That's something that I think the Nazis would have done.
Yeah.
If they didn't already do that back then.
You want to hear a funny thing? You want to hear a really funny thing? You know where the Nazis got their Q from?
Where they got what from?
You know where the Nazis took their cue from?
Oh, Margaret Sanger.
There it is. There.
And
it was fucking crazy because Margaret, I forget what what it was called, but it's like there was a certain portion that they would have allowed someone to be, I think, like Jewish or whatever. I think they like if you were like only an eighth Jewish, then you'd be spared. And that was more what is it, compassionate than Margaret Sanger's view. It was like even if you're half black, you're dead.
Jeez.
Yeah, if you guys don't believe me, look it up for yourself. Like I mean, even though the Nazis took their cue from Margaret Sanger, the Nazis were more compassionate than Margaret Sanger.
That's yeah.
Look at it. I mean, if you guys don't believe me, look it up for yourselves. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Call me, and if I'm a liar, then I'll fully admit that I'm a liar. But go look it up.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's fucking horrific.
Seriously.
No, I was trying. Crap, I had a point that I was gonna kind of throw in here too, but yeah, like I said, the fact, like I said, the fact of not only are they knowing that they're seeing those people as dollar signs, for one, which is evil enough, but like they're lying to them. They see the people as dollar signs, as money makers, and it's like it. This is why we fight against it, because this is evil. Like, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. Right, I don't care if you're not a. This isn't a Christian issue. This is a humanity issue. This is a human rights issue.
Right. I mean,
if you have any sort of morals, this is something like you could be an atheist, but if you have any sort of humanity, this is something that should anger you.
Yeah, I'm.
And I'm not disparaging. Like, hey, people make bad decisions. Like, there have been in the Christian community. I'm speaking for us. Like, we've there have been people who have murdered people, done horrible things, but they've come and they've become a Christian, and it's like uh, we're a very forgiving community. And it's like I'm not disparaging people who've made mistakes in the past, and the people who have had abortions and stuff. It's like you're not cast out from our community. Like, hey, we all make really terrible, horrible mistakes that we, and so hey, if you've had an abortion, like I don't hate you. Like yeah, and I'm not saying it's like, oh, hey, it's okay, but at the same time, like I don't hate you. I love on those people. I want them to, and I hope that people see the truth. That's all I care about. I want people to see the truth. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and something else that I think is kind of funny too is the whole that really got the ball rolling on this is the whole Roe v. Wade thing, and the people that were involved in that case, um, uh, the woman that was involved in that case has turned around her beliefs. Like she doesn't believe in it. She's an anti-abortionist now, and
Right.
the child that was in question in that Supreme Court case wrote a book talking about this. I was like, I shouldn't be alive, but she wrote a whole book on this whole thing, and no
Yeah,
one
and
talks about that.
yeah, she even admits that she was she lied about her pregnancy and how I think she said that she was like raped or something, and that she was like yeah that she was told to lie about it, and then
That
and then she
no
ended up
one
becoming a
talks.
believer. She became born again. She did she recently pass?
That I don't know, but no one talks about that. No
Yeah,
one.
of course. Yeah, they.
And then even today on Twitter, I saw someone kind of and to be honest, it is well because it was a thread by this person, and it started off as being kind of like, oh, it's a sad story because they found out the because the ultrasounds now they can it's the technology has advanced quite a bit, so they're actually able to see a lot more than we've ever been able to see in the past. And they
Mhm.
found out that the brain pretty much while the baby was alive, but there was essentially no brain, right?
Right.
um and so yeah, there was a heartbeat, but it was mainly because it was and I'm just going based off of what this person was talking about on their Twitter thread, and pretty much saying that there was a heartbeat, but there was no brain. So obviously, the baby can't come to term because it's gonna die. I mean, you can't live without a brain.
Right.
Um, and but then it devolves in this issue. But in this is where I'm kind of thinking maybe it was a little bit bullshit. And if it isn't, then I apologize.
Mhm.
But because it devolved in this whole thing, because there's been a few states that were talking about the with the heartbeat bill, which I
Mhm.
think is a good thing. It's like, well, yeah, but there was no, and they kind of devolved in this rant about how oh well, if this heartbeat bill had ever passed, I wouldn't have been able to, we would have had to carry this child to term, and it would have just been dead anyways. It's and it just kind of devolved in this whole oh, anti a rant against the anti-abortionist movement and stuff like that. It's like, hold on a second, like, I like, and if your case is real, I think there is some semblance where it's like, okay, yeah, I think like if with because we have the technology now where we can see stuff where like, okay, this child is not going to live. It's kind of there was a kind of a hypothetical that was I heard this also this week too about like because there's very rare cases where the uh where like the fetus will attach into the fallopian tube and not the uterus,
Oh,
and it's like
yeah, atopic pregnancy.
survive. Yeah, and that's where it's like, okay, that is dangerous to like if carried to term, like the baby is gonna die, but it also could kill the
Yeah,
woman.
it killed. Yeah,
And
it could kill the mother.
right, and we don't have the medical technology yet, at least to fix that problem.
Right.
And I think there's in certain cases where it's like technically that person is dead. And it's they might have a heartbeat, but like they're dead, so it's like you're not really killing anything, and it's really sad, and no one's denying that fact of it, and I don't really see that as abortion in a sense. I think it's but I just part of me thinks that Twitter thread was maybe a little bit bullshit, where it's like kind of the thing where it's like, oh well, maybe there was brain activity, but maybe it wasn't a fully developed brain, so it wasn't oh they said no brain, but something tells me that maybe that there was brain, but it wasn't as the where it should have been. So like, oh well, they're gonna be mentally deformed. So it goes back to eugenics. Right. So there's going to be mentally handicapped. So eugenics. It becomes eugenics at that point. And I know, and I don't know if it was with. I know I've had a discussion too about like, because we were talking about the movie Forrest Gump, and how like Forrest, it starts off with like his IQ, and then we had a right, and we had a discussion about like what is the lowest amount of IQ that a brain can have where it can still live and function in society. Like I mean, like our to not necessarily have a good life, but to be able to actually live as a body. And so I don't know why we had this discussion, but I forgot what that amount was. So like I said, if that story was true, and I'm kind of doubting its validity because of the way that the thread went, because it went into this whole um uh it's sad, and that becomes something like, I think that there are some exceptions to the rule where it's like, okay, well, if the baby's just going to be born dead to begin with, it's like, then it's already dead. But just because like maybe the brain isn't fully developed, or it has Down syndrome, or like in your case, Andy, it's like, oh well, we just there's parts of Europe where it's like, oh well, we've gotten rid of Down syndrome, we've cured. It's like, no, you killed off everybody that was going to have Down syndrome.
Right, 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 right.
That's not the same thing. That's
No,
eugenics.
yeah,
That's not
exactly.
curing the problem.
Yeah, it's like it's not killing the patients to cure the disease. It's hacking out the foot to not have to do pedicures.
Yeah. I'm fucking pissed off.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's funny. We always go dark when we do pre-tapes.
Why is that, Andy? Why
I
do
don't
we
know.
get?
I think it's because we don't have that time to uh, find a little bit more lighthearted kind of stories, and
Maybe you know what? You know how this started is because you acted like an asshole, like in the behind the scenes. Fucking prick.
Oh, this is true. This is true. But I don't. But
Hell,
I
even
don't think it's.
our movie
I don't think
review is a
it's the direct cause. Because I think because
no.
no matter what, every single time we do pre tapes, it always goes like kind of like this dark kind of angry uh, sort of direction.
And I don't think our movie review is going to really change that much either, because that really dives into some interesting,
Yeah,
deep topics too.
yeah, it is the movie, you know, Blade Runner is kind of a downer. There's not that much hope in it.
No, there's not.
Um, but I guess we'll do the best we can. And so in the most sloppiest of all transitions, let's get into the movie review for this week, which is Blade Runner, starring Harrison Ford and directed by Ridley Scott. And let me just bring up. Okay, so yes, in Blade Runner, in the 21st century, a corporation develops human clones to be used as slaves in colonies outside the Earth, identified as replicants. In 2019, this year. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In 2019, a former police officer is hired to hunt down a fugitive group of clones living undercover in Los Angeles. So that's the quick kind of rundown of that. And so I guess we'll begin our review. So yeah,
So,
what were your initial thoughts, Robert?
because I've watched this movie twice, kind of the same thing with Mad Max. I had never seen this movie before, and so I watched it once, and I was like, and I kind of didn't really know what to think about it, so I was like, and I was like, all right, let me go back and like watch it again and kind of get in the right like mindset now that I know kind of like what happens, and let's look at it more critically. And so I did that today.
Mm-hmm.
It's a and it kind of brought me back to there's a couple of games that I've played that kind of also kind of dive into this issue with and I think we've there's been a lot of people who've been talking about like kind of this similar issue like in various podcasts and whatnot with artificial intelligence and stuff or uh, actually well that level of um, intelligence it's called something else. It's not artificial intelligence. It's there's something else that it's called and I can't think of the name of
The
it right now.
Singularity.
Something along those lines. It's something completely
It's like
different.
when the AI becomes like self-aware.
Right, and
Yeah,
it's a different term, and I can't remember what that term is right now. But there's a couple of games
I mean,
I've
from what
played.
you're describing, it sounds like the singularity, like that theoretical point where AI will, attains self-awareness
Yeah, it
or
attains sentience.
consciousness.
Yeah, there's a couple of games. One game that I've played earlier in the year, and another game that I've played, in the past. It was a Mass Effect deals with
Mm-hmm.
this issue. The Mass Effect series deals with this issue, and then a game that recently came out, Detroit Become Human, kind of deals with this very same issue where
Right.
they've created this artificial intelligence, and we're not really because Blade Runner it kind of comes off of the where it starts. It's obviously they have created the technology to create these beings, but we're at the back end because they've eliminated the majority of what they called the replicants, which were used for warfare or doing dangerous missions, what
Mm-hmm.
have you. So they were
Yeah,
essentially
or really like
created as
dangerous, kind of like
slaves.
menial labor, like mining
Right.
or some sort of exploration or construction.
Right, and it's similar in the other games that I played too. In Mass Effect, there was a alien race that created uh, these robots, which I'm trying to think of. I think they were called the Quarians. That and they created these this AI that they had sentience, but they were used as slaves. But then
Hmm.
they ended up like revolting against their creators and ended up becoming their own race. And
Hmm.
so then, because of that, like AI was deemed illegal, same as in Blade Runner,
Right.
and was and kind of dealt with that same issue. Then in Detroit Become Human, there was all the characters that you um, control are these AI robots that were created, and while they're kind of these, they have their own control mechanisms, but they break free and become like they kind of create their own memories and become human in a sense.
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of like what this movie deals with. It's like what is a human? What is who's living? Are just because like they're not fully um like they're not human like as we are human, but like they're created to think, can form memories and can have feelings. Is that what makes you a person? And it's kind of a mind fuck if you really think about it.
Right. It is. Yeah, because
And I think
it's
this
dealing
is
with like
something
these
that I
really
think
heady
people have
things.
wrestled with that throughout history.
What was that?
And this is an issue that I think people have thought about throughout history. And I don't know if this will become a real problem
Hmm.
for us. I as a Christian, I don't think that this will be there's something where like I don't think God would allow this, but who knows?
Right.
It's
Well, I
not gonna
mean,
happen in our lifetime. I'll say that.
because we are imperfect beings, I don't think that we will ever have the ability to create in the same way that God, creates or created
And
us.
that's why I don't think. Yeah, and I don't think that's why I don't think it's gonna happen.
Right. And because we are limited, there's no way that because we ultimately have to program and code this this thinking machine, and and because we are so limited, I think our limitations will be then passed on to that machine. So it'll only go so far as we are able to allow it to go.
You know, and here's kind of a crazy thought. Like if we're so I'm gonna talk. We'll talk a little bit more about what happens in the movie later on. But like this is the thought experiment that the movie was trying to convey. That's why we're kind of diving down this rabbit hole just to let you
Right.
guys know. So uh in the Christian mindset, the Christian belief, like I don't know what you guys believe, but in creation, we were created as perfect, right? So we have Adam and Eve before the fall of man. Things, God, it was very good. It was perfect. And let's say like we don't end up sinning, right? Uh, do you think that like let's say we got through the ages up till today without like there was no fall of man, right? Do you
Okay.
think that um, that we would be able, since we hadn't fallen, yeah, we're not God, but we're not fallen, so we're not this imperfect being. Do you
Right.
think we would have been able to create something like an AI that would function in that way?
I don't think we would even have considered it.
I don't think so either, but like if you like I said, it's a very hypothetical at this point.
Right. I mean, because okay,
Because
Are we at the
if you
same? Are
think
we at the
about it, like,
same? Are we at the same intellect as Adam and Eve when they were first created? And let's say that then they're
oh,
not. Then let's not say that they're not dumb, but they're not super geniuses.
well, I think like because I think we've become dumber as time has gone on, which is one of the movies that we're gonna be doing later in the month is gonna
Right.
delve into that. um, and
But
I think
okay,
that has
but
to do like
in a perfect scenario, are we able to double our knowledge, or are we destined to remain at the pre-fall intellect, not dummy, not morons, not below room temperature intellect, but not like super geniuses.
I honestly think that like we would either remain the same I would argue that Adam and Eve are smarter than
Than we are today.
we give them credit for. I mean, yeah, they because you look at uh, if you believe the creation narrative as something that happened, Adam like named all the creatures and like everything within a day, maybe. Like he kind of like and that takes like some like level of like being able to of intelligence
But are we
to
taking that as a literal day, or
I okay in my mindset,
I don't know.
yes,
Not, I
I
mean,
do.
I think we're getting a little bit into the weeds now, but
Yeah, we definitely are.
yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll
Okay,
say
so
this.
let's just say, okay, yeah. So we're smart. We're we at the average. Let's just say we have 100 IQ. Let's just say rationally that the pre-fall man had an intellect of 100.
I mean, yeah, I would. I don't
So
know if
the so
I don't know if it would even be necessary if we were in like some sort of like pre-fall scenario. Because if you think about it,
well, I mean that's the
what
circumstances in which you presented the scenario is that if we
that
remain
well, that's what I
perfect
was saying. It's like
beings, if we remain perfect beings, then will we then still have the desire to create, and will we try to create
I
essentially
don't
new
know if we would
life?
have. I don't know if we would have the desire to do that. I mean, we're because technically we would be doing that in procreating is in creating new life.
True,
Um,
yes, but yeah, but then we would never we would never create artificial life. Then we would understand I think we'd understand the purpose of life better, in
true.
pre-fall intellect, and so like even the notion of creating artificial life would not cross our minds necessarily. Maybe like some really dumbed down kind of like automatons, maybe just for like heavy lifting, but nothing to the point where like
Actually, well now okay. So now, since we've gone down this since we've gone down this path, I'll say this like because before the fall, work was not a toil, right? So
that's
the
true.
fact
Yeah,
we
we
wouldn't
were
need
actually. I mean, not to play into the theory of that, we were just a slave race, but we were created to do work.
right, but it wasn't a horrible chore where we had to toil and
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
sweat
yeah.
um and so I think like in post fall everything work is tough. It's like we're it's backbreaking work, but it's still necessary. So because we're becoming less and less and less, we're always trying to create new technology that is makes things easier, or we're trying to create better things to do that. So I think like in pre-fall, I don't. while we might be able to create those this type of intelligence, we wouldn't have the need for it. Whereas in where we're at currently, we would we don't have the ability to create that that type of intelligence, but we're always trying to strive to create something that's better than us. We're almost like trying to create something that's better than us to
Okay,
eliminate
so
us.
we would essentially only create things to be useful. So does that mean that we would still have like cranes?
Man, that's sort of who knows.
Because I mean, it's because that's what a crane is. It's wholly useful, and it's wholly useful, and it's only designed to help, really. And it's to and it yeah, it's wholly useful, and it's only designed to help. So would we
That's one
develop
of those.
cranes?
That's a good question because that's the thing is like that, and who knows? Maybe there was stuff like that. We don't know because that world is gone.
Right. Yeah. I
If
mean.
you are in the belief that that world existed, that the pre flood world existed, that the biblical account is accurate, that world is gone,
Mhm.
and we don't know the type of technology or whatever they had at that time.
Right.
Because it's really, I would think, because let's say you believe in creationism, like as far as like the because we're about post flood, because the world's about like 7 to 10,000 years old. Post flood, it's been about like 3 to 4,000 years. Or at least, roughly, like, it's been split half and half. Pre-flood to post-flood.
Mhm.
And so to think that, like, we've had all this time, post-flood, and yeah, like, it's pretty much the whole world was wiped out, and we started from scratch, and it's taken about this time to gain this technology. Who knows that, like, maybe that the world before that we have some semblance of recorded stuff in Genesis. We don't know what type of technology they had. They could have had the same technology. We don't know.
True, and especially with the longer life cycles, because potentially we humans might not have died pre-fall.
Yeah, pre-fall. I actually here's a hot take for Christians. I don't think that we were initially meant to die. I think we were meant to live forever.
Right.
Why do you think
Or
we
at
have like?
least I think we're being prepared. I think we are being prepared for eternal life, in these physical forms, because they said, like in Genesis it says, like, the tree of life was in there, and whoever ate that, would gain eternal life. And after original sin, God set up cherubim to guard the tree of life, so Adam and Eve would not eat of it on their way out.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like I don't think we were ever meant to die because with Christ we were meant to. It was a restoration of what was lost, and
Right.
that's why we've gained eternal life. Because He is the tree of life.
Right.
So to me, like had Adam and Eve never sinned, I think they'd still be alive. They'd still be alive.
Hmm.
And I think that's also part of like why that the lifespans got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right, because Adam died at like 900 years old.
Right, because all the pre-flood guys were in the 900s or so. Then you had like after like Noah was like in his 600s,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of dive bombed after that.
Right.
So, anyways, about Blade Runner.
We took a really hard left into the weeds in that one. But yes, back to
As
Blade
far as
Runner.
like, it's kind of like an because we're at a point like where Blade Runner begins. They've already like kind of developed this artificial intelligence technology to create these replicants. Yet at the same time, they were better than humanity, but at the same time not as good because
Right.
there were flaws.
Well, the only flaw that they had was they had a very short life span, especially the military units. They only had a lifespan of about 4 years, and the whole thing, the whole like kind of subplot of this story is, I guess, the antagonist. If you want to, I never really saw Roy Batty as the antagonist or the bad guy, I should
I
say.
felt bad. I felt
Yeah,
really bad for
he
him.
was a very even though he was set up as kind of like the antagonist to Harrison Ford's Deckard. I don't think he was the bad guy. He was just the opposite of Deckard. Um, and this kind of the sub plot of Blade Runner is Roy Batty's quest in prolonging his life.
Right.
And I think it culminates. I'm like, oh, spoiler alert! It culminates in Roy Batty's death, and like I think one of the most beautiful speeches ever given on film, where he talks about like about his uniqueness and about his experience and how like they'll be gone forever now. Describing his death as like tears lost in the rain. Um, yeah, really, really sad. And I think as much as he was supposed to be the antagonist, I think he's more of a sympathetic character because he just wants to live, and he's attained some level of sentience, of self awareness, whatever you want to call it. But he just wants the ability to live out like a normal human lifespan.
I think I think of the characters, Deckard was. It felt like he developed sympathy towards the replicants as time went on, because obviously, like he, and we don't know what
Right.
because he had been a Blade Runner for a long time. Because when we are entered in the movie, he's retired, like he's out of the game.
Right. Yeah, he's been out of the game, and he gets like kind of like that line in Godfather Part 3, like just when you think I'm out, they pull me back in, and this is kind of like his last job kind of thing.
Right, and this case, I think, affected him a lot because as he's searching out these replicants, and yeah, he did kill some, but he developed. There was something that he saw in these replicants that differed from previous than in the past, because he obviously develops a love interest in one of the replicants.
Yeah,
Rachel, yeah, and I think while he was kind of fighting for his life against the quote unquote antagonist, I think he developed kind of almost a sadness for
he definitely
the thing is like because Deckard should be dead, but like he was saved by him.
Right. Yeah. Deckard definitely, I think, develops respect for Roy Batty. And and he definitely, and I think he definitely develops an empathy for him, and his struggle, his quest to just merely exist. um, and to and
And
to and just to
and you
have the
think about it,
choice and just to have the choice of of life, not just have just not just having an expiration date stamped on his ass. Uh,
true. And I think why he develops that respect too, because if you look at the how, because this is set in this futuristic Los Angeles.
mhm,
Um, if you think about it, because everything, the whole movie is, even when it's daylight, it's very dark. Like the
right.
whole world is very dark, right?
Hmm.
And everyone, it seems like everyone is fighting kind of to survive anyways. And I think Deckard, seeing that the replicants are fighting for the same thing that he wants and what the people around him want, they're just fighting to to live another day and to survive.
Right. Or like
And
and even like I think I think the stand-in for heaven in this movie is living off world, off planet, on one of the colonies that they keep like
right,
advertising or talking about, like kind of in the background of this entire movie, because like you see like the blimps with like the sign saying like live off world and da it's the place
and it's like,
of
and then you have like
opportunities,
the
and it's and so it's kind of like the promised land, but for these replicants who spend majority of their lives out in in the colonies, they know that it's not this glamorous promised land.
right,
It's more it's filled with violence and hardships too.
because it was there what you because it you see that dichotomy where um the geneticist asks one of the before he knew she was a replicant. It's like, why are you still on Earth? Why aren't you on one of the colonies?
Hmm.
And it's like, she doesn't give him like the straight answer, but like that's after hearing from Roy, like it's like you don't know what I've seen. Um,
Right.
and it's kind of like you realize like, oh yeah, it's not this it's not what's advertised. It's definitely it's uh it's crazy. So it's a really it's interesting. It's just the whole movie is just kind of like a very dark thought experiment.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, it's a dark thought experiment. Like when does life begin? Or I mean, we're still kind of trying to tie it back. Kind of tying it to the abortion things. Like when does life begin? You know.
And like I said, yeah, I think this is a movie that perfectly ties into what we've been talking about today, in
Hmm.
that if it's like what do you do with like the and I think this is a good thought experiment because it's it's in the whole movie. The movie doesn't make you feel good. I'll just say that
No,
it's a
no.
good movie that
There's
doesn't make
there's
you
no
feel good.
real like happy ending or like actual resolution to anything. It's just it just leaves you kind of with more questions you, and kind of questioning your own sentience or um,
Right.
like kind of like the Matrix. Like, are we like really are we in real life, or are we actually in a simulation? That kind of thing. It's like, are we really alive, or are we really like maybe we're just like we're like one of these like replicants?
Yeah. Right. Keep talking, Andy. I'll be right back.
Okay. Um, yeah, for those of you who haven't seen Blade Runner before, it is one of those real like head scratchers of a movie, and it does kind of fill you with a little bit of doubt about your own existence, or like the meaning of your own existence. And so it's definitely one of those movies that you should watch. And I hope I can speak for Robert when I say that it's an important movie to watch. if only just to get your mind thinking about these things. Like kind of tying it back to the earlier topics, especially abortion. When is a what constitutes a life? When does it begin? Is it merely the collection of experiences that we have, or is it does life just happen? Uh, does life just happen, as you are conceived, or like as in terms of these replicants when they're created? So a lot of deep philosophical questions for you to kind of wrestle around with in this movie. When you say what wouldn't you say, Robert?
Oh, I would say like the thing that because when I first because like I said I saw this movie twice within the last week, and I think the first time I saw it I was like, what it kind of took I had to really think about what I was like, what am I watching? And unlike our movie from last week, which was complete it's terrible. There was no real thought experiment when it came to Mad Max, right? Like it's just
Right.
kind of it
Yeah.
was just sheer anarchy. It was in essence it was nothing. This one, like you actually have to. It does kind of it connects with the things that we've been talking about over the past few weeks with kind of like while these replicants, they look like adults, but they're really not that old. Like they're only like maybe a few months old, a few years old,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah. I mean,
in the
it
case of
goes to when that one replicant, what's his name? Was it Leon?
yeah,
Yeah,
Leon,
Leon confronts Deckard, and he asks him like, "How old am I?" When in reality, since he's a
right,
replicant, he's not that old. He may be like at the most, or like his particular model might his expiration date might have been like for like or like 3 years or 4 years.
right,
Even though like through like
and it's like
certain like upgrades or whatever, he might have been able to extend it like a couple of years. So in truth, he might even though he looks like a grown adult, he might be he really might be only like 6 or 7.
and because and where the case changes with is Rachel was kind of in essence the perfect replicant because unlike the Roy and Leon and the rest, um, Rachel had memories that weren't her own that were implanted into her. So she
Right.
had quote unquote memories and feelings and it took based off of like the test that they did to determine if they were a replicant or not. Um, while like it only took like a handful of questions to for Deckard to find out about or and the other Blade Runners to figure out about like Leon and the others. For Rachel, it took hundreds and hundreds of questions to finally determine that she was a replicant.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and the other thing is like, unlike the others, Rachel didn't know she was a replicant.
Right. Or like but as Tyrell said, but she was starting to suspect that she was.
Right, and that's the but like it was for that reason because she had memories and emotions different from the other replicants is why she was able to potentially survive longer than the rest of them because that was kind of the cushion that was needed to keep
Right. Yes.
her
As Tyrell said,
intact.
like in the newer models of replicants, they would give them a memory to kind of like anchor them uh, into reality, so that they would be able to better acclimate, or basically not go insane. Because I
Right.
think I think what that points out is that everyone needs like some sort of anchor, or centering kind of something to center them, essentially.
Something that you can hold on to, that you can always like go back to, like is you can go off so far, but where your center, your foundation is in life.
Right, exactly.
And I think honestly, like, and while this is a very very dark movie, I think that's actually a really good kind of like a Christian point, like because our life has a foundation. We would say that our life is kind of our foundation is Jesus Christ. We have that to hold on to. Or you could say that about anybody that has any sort of belief system. Like they have a center that they can always go back
Right.
to.
Or or like any like deep, any sort of deep conviction that they hold fast to.
And it's like, and I think that this movie kind of shows the importance of that. It's like that having a good conviction, belief system, something to hold you down, that you can always go back to. Um, that's important. It doesn't matter who you are.
Hmm. So do you think, well, in Roy's case, then do you think it's his rejection of the rejection of his foundation, or like the memory that they implanted in him, and
But see,
or he was
the way I
seeking his own center.
I
Not the
think
one
that was the
that
case.
they implanted him with, but he was seeking his own, I think.
You're right, and I think that's that. I think that's part of why, like, that particular group of like replicants was, why I said like their creator Tyrell was saying it's like, yeah, you're burning very bright, but like but you don't live as long, and I think that's part of the reason is because they were seeking that out, but there was nothing really there was maybe no foundation to be had, and I don't know. It's just it's tough. I might have to go back and watch it again just to kind of like, because I want to like like looking at like Roy specifically, because obviously like Deckard and Rachel are kind of like the main ones that we're focused on, but
Right.
Going back and looking like, okay, what is Roy doing? Like, what is he actually saying? I might have to go back and do that again. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I've seen this. I've seen Blade Runner multiple times, and every single time, I'm kind of left scratching my head and like noticing things I didn't before, and it's like, oh man, all these new things, and like what I thought was the meaning before, and I look at it now, and it's like I think it's something completely different, and yeah, it's one of these movies that you could watch 100 times and you'll take away a new thing every single time.
Yeah, it's yeah, I it definitely feel like that's kind of how I'm seeing the movie too. It's I'm actually looking forward to seeing the new one,
Oh, you
2049.
haven't seen 2049?
No, I have it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. Uh, I saw it. Pretty solid movie. I don't think it compares to the original, but it has its own strengths.
All right.
So yeah.
How would you
Okay. Well. Okay. All right. Let's get back. Let's get to our rating. Robert, what do you give this movie?
I'm gonna give it a and this also might be just because we're coming off of Mad Max, but I'm gonna give this a 4
Really?
because I think it's
Oh.
like I said,
Okay. Sorry.
not
My bad. I was thinking of something else. Four, yeah, four is really good. Yes, yes, yes. Because we do it
I would say like
on Nocturnal Transmissions. We do it out of five. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I
Um,
because someone asked me because I went to go watch Captain Marvel and someone asked me out of 10, and so
oh well, actually, well, we'll deal with that on another day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
So four for you.
the I would say four just because um, I don't know if it's necessarily like a great movie per se, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the what the movie provides as far as thought content
Mm-hmm.
um, is very interesting, and I like movies that make me think on a different level,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is a perfect movie for that. So I'm gonna give it 4 stars.
Okay. Yeah. Because I have such a close connection to this movie. I'm gonna come in at 4.5.
Ooh,
Just because I have seen it before, and it's
is
one
that
of
your
those
highest
movies.
rating on a movie? By the way,
What was that?
is that your highest movie rating?
Four
Because I
and a
don't think
half.
you've done a 5 star.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I've never done a 5 star.
so that's man, that's high praise.
Yeah, so 4.5 for me because I think visually, and I think just like thematically, and just like you said, the thought content in this movie is great. I mean, I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but it has like that like rewatchability. You know, it's kind
Hmm.
of like it's. I think Blade Runner was that generation. What was to us the Matrix, the first one.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that because Ridley Scott, I know he definitely he borrowed very heavily on like the cyberpunk aesthetic of anime, and it's funny how they got it all wrong. They picked the wrong Asian country to be the one in charge in the future. Because
That's
everyone
true.
thought it was the Japanese, and they thought that the Japanese were gonna take over or whatever. But who would have thought that it was gonna be China?
Because it was the funny thing is the because this movie was based off of a book.
All
I
right,
forget the
yeah.
author's name, but it was like do cyborgs
Do
dream of electric
do
sheep? I think
yeah something do cyber do or I don't know.
I think it
Do
was like do
robots do
cyborgs dream of
robots dream
electric
about
sheep?
electric sheep?
Like
I think.
yeah, and so and it was written back in the early '60s, I believe,
Mm.
and so yeah, it's kind of that author was probably influenced by what he knew from like the back in the World War II age, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very possible that the Japanese were going to take over.
Very true. All right. Well, there you have it. Robert gives it a 4. I give it a 4.5. Uh, Go out and watch it for yourself. Leave us a comment. What you thought of the movie? What were your impressions? We'd love to hear from you. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. I hope you were entertained. Yeah. Wow, we went long. We did 2 hours. But
Hey,
I hope you guys were entertained nonetheless. I know this is a long one. We don't usually go this long, but I think it's just because we were talking about things we were passionate about, and I think me and Robert, we when it comes to the protection of children, no matter the size or the gestational period, we are passionate and we will forever be defenders of children. And
100%.
I hope we made compelling cases. And I hope for people who may oppose us, at least in thought, you'll think about what we said. You'll think about the points that we brought up, and and I hope you'll entertain a conversation.
Definitely.
All right, well, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday night, sometimes live at 8 p.m. ish. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows, Circle of Jerks podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, and Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts, Twitter at PodcastCOJ and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. That'll do it, and we'll see you next time.